You watched Senator Whitehouse press Attorney General Pam Bondi about a $50,000 cash exchange, Epstein-related leads, sealed testimony, and whether the FBI recovered evidence. What you saw was more than one tense exchange. It was a snapshot of how Washington now operates: overlapping investigations, competing narratives, selective outrage, and political theater.
Thank you, Chairman. Welcome, Ms. Bondi.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for meeting with me. I greatly appreciate that.
It was a pleasure. Ms. Bondi, you were a courtroom prosecutor for a great many years. As a courtroom prosecutor, did you ever have an enemies list?
No, Senator.
And you went on to be Florida's Attorney General. As Florida's Attorney General, did you ever have an enemies list?
No, Senator.
As Florida's Attorney General, you were responsible for hiring into the Florida Department of Attorney General, correct?
Senator, the Attorney General's office in Florida is the third largest in the state, approximately 1,400 employees and approximately 400 lawyers. Only California and Texas are our bigger offices.
And you were responsible
yes.
for hiring into that office while you were Attorney General?
Yes.
Would you have hired someone into the Florida Attorney General's office who you knew had an enemies list?
Senator, to cut to the chase, you're clearly talking about Kash Patel. I don't believe he has an enemies list. He made a quote on TV, which I have not heard. I saw your sign, or Senator Durbin's sign, about Kash. But I know that Kash Patel has had 60 jury trials as a public defender, as a prosecutor. He has great experience in the Intel Department, Department of Defense. I have known Kash, and I believe that Kash is the right person at this time for this job. You'll have the ability to question Mr. Patel.
And I'm questioning you right now
do.
about whether you will enforce an enemies list that he announced publicly on television.
Oh, Senator, I'm sorry. There will never be an enemies list within the Department of Justice.
Thank you. The FBI's, what is the FBI's role in national security and counterterrorism, and how important is that role?
You know, Senator, I believe now more than ever, counterterrorism is so important and vital in our country. We are facing such incredible threats here and abroad. If I'm sure many of you saw former FBI Director Wray's interview on 60 Minutes, he talked about the threats that, frankly, again, I don't have my security clearance, but the threats facing us, Senator, from China right now that are so great, with the sleeper cells within our country.
Given that importance, is it responsible to call for shutting down the FBI's counterterrorism and national security work? And will you, as Attorney General, impede or shut down the FBI's counterterrorism and national security work?
Senator,
2 questions.
Senator, I believe that national security is vital right now for our country on so many fronts. I could continue to discuss many others.
And the FBI's role in that?
And the FBI plays a vital role in counterterrorism
which you
throughout
will
our
or will
world.
not shut down.
I will look at each agency. I have no intention of shutting anything down right now, Senator. I am not in that office yet, and if confirmed, I will look at each individual agency and how it should be managed, but counterterrorism right now in our world is vital.
You have said that Department of Justice prosecutors will be prosecuted in the Trump administration. What Department of Justice prosecutors will be prosecuted and why?
I said that on TV. I said prosecutors will be prosecuted to finish the quote, if bad. Investigators will be investigated. You know, we all take an oath, Senator, to uphold the law. None of us are above the law. Let me give you a really good example of a bad lawyer within the Justice Department, a guy named Klein Smith, who altered a FISA warrant, one of the most important things we can do in this country. So will everyone be held to an equal, fair system of justice? If I am the next Attorney General, absolutely, and no one is above the law.
Under what circumstances will you prosecute journalists for what they write?
I believe in the freedom of speech. only if anyone commits a crime. It's pretty basic, Senator, with anything, with any victim. And this goes back to my entire career for 18 years as a prosecutor and then 8 years as Florida's Attorney General. You find the facts of the case, you apply the law in good faith, and you treat everyone fairly.
And it would not be appropriate for a prosecutor to start with a name and look for a crime. It's a prosecutor's job to start with a crime and look for a name, correct?
Senator, I think that is the whole problem with the weaponization that we have seen the last 4 years and what's been happening to Donald Trump. They targeted Donald Trump. They went after him, actually starting back in 2016. They targeted his campaign. They have launched countless investigations against him. That will not be the case if I am Attorney General. I will not politicize that office. I will not target people simply because of their political affiliation. Justice will be administered even-handedly throughout this country. Senator, we've got to bring this country back together. We've got to move forward, or we're going to lose our country.
Yeah, I think the concern is that weaponization of the Justice Department may well occur under your tenure, and we want to make sure that that's not the case, that you remain independent, that you remain able to and willing to tell the president no when that's necessary to protect the Constitution and the integrity of the department. So that's where I'm asking these questions. We talked in the meeting about the contacts policy that has prevailed really since Senator Hatch sat in that chair and demanded it of the Clinton Justice Department through all the administration since then, with the exception of a brief period under Attorney General Gonzalez, which he corrected and which did not end well for him. There has been a contacts policy that limits contacts between the White House and the Department of Justice to a very few senior officials on each side. In your role as Attorney General, if you are confirmed, will you maintain, defend, and enforce that longstanding contacts policy?
Senator, yes, I will meet with White House counsel and I will meet with the appropriate officials and follow the contacts policy.
My time has expired. Thank you, Ms. Bondi.
Here's what matters, what you should learn from it, and why Bondi's response matters to conservatives. Start with the clear factual backbone. Reporting indicates an undercover FBI sting caught Tom Homan accepting $50,000 in cash in a bag, and that recording is the center of the controversy. That reporting prompted questions from senators about what happened to the money and whether the FBI or DOJ followed up publicly on the transaction. Reuters' White House repeatedly asked Bondi simple, direct questions. Did Homan keep the money? Did the FBI get it back? And did he report it on his taxes? Bondi's repeated answer, in essence, was that matter was reviewed by FBI agents and DOJ prosecutors who found no credible evidence of wrongdoing, and operational or personnel specifics should be addressed by the FBI. Those deferrals to the FBI or to Director Patel were the moments that drew the most heat in the hearing. Reporting and multiple transcripts show Bondi repeatedly pushed the line that the investigative conclusion is what matters, and she directed procedural questions to the FBI. CNN transcripts. 1. Why that response is politically and legally significant and why it's worth studying. In the U.S. system, the Attorney General oversees the Department of Justice, but normally refrains from answering granular operational details about active or investigative matters that involve agencies like the FBI. From a legal ethics standpoint, there's a real tension. Voters want accountability and answers, but releasing operational details can jeopardize investigations, witness safety, or legal process. Bondi leaned into that institutional caution, and her opponents read it as evasion. That dynamic is worth understanding because it repeats in many hearings, the tension between transparency and proper procedure. Now let's talk about tactics and messaging. White House's line of questioning was designed to generate a headline, repeated, narrow questions that force a short, dramatic soundbite. Where is the $50,000? That's a classic Senate hearing maneuver when your goal is to frame a narrative. Bondi's strategy was the opposite: refuse the bait, re-anchor the conversation to the investigative finding, no credible evidence of wrongdoing, and pivot to broader questions of process and consistency. For a conservative audience, that's the lesson. Staying anchored to facts and institutionality prevents being pulled into partisan innuendo. There's also an education moment about how political hypocrisy operates. Bondi pushed back by pointing to Democratic figures and donors with questionable ties and suggested selective outrage when those same sources aren't scrutinized by the same people raising alarms today. Whether you accept her specific assertions or not, the pushback exposed a common pattern. Political actors will amplify allegations when it fits a strategic aim and minimize similar concerns when it doesn't. Learning to spot that pattern, who amplifies, when, and why, helps viewers evaluate future hearings and media cycles more critically. Humanizing detail. It's easy to caricature the players as mere partisan actors, but notice Bondi's posture, a former state attorney general and longtime prosecutor who has to balance being tough with being careful about departmental norms. On the other side, Whitehouse is a senator whose job is to pressure nominees and extract public answers. Both are playing roles defined by institutional incentives. Understanding those incentives, career legacy, re-election, media coverage, institutional norms, helps the viewer read the scene without reflex and outrage. That's what good civic literacy looks like. There are 3 concrete takeaways for the viewer who wants to be informed, not inflamed. The reporting that kicked this off centered on a recorded sting and subsequent DOJ review. For specifics about chain of custody or tax reporting, the DOJ and FBI would be the agencies to examine, and public statements so far emphasize no prosecutable evidence. Reuters +1. Senate hearings are as much about optics and messaging as they are about facts. When you see repeated narrow questions, ask, is the question seeking information or sound bites? If sound bites, follow the institutional record, reports, filings, public statements for a fuller picture. Accusations that point to a pattern, e.g. Epstein ties, suspicious activity reports, deserve scrutiny across the board. Apply the same standards to allies and opponents. That's how accountability becomes credible rather than partisan.